Bloody VAR! Bloody fine bastard! Ah!
So we did have just then the VAR intro. If you didn't realise already, VAR is a pile of shit. Let's not beat around the bush. We had the squiggly lines that are drawn on the pitch. We had the footballs. We had Mike's screaming, and we just had everyone going no. And if you didn't realise, there was a hidden little joke in there. For all of you paying attention, how long VAR takes. But a few incidents of note this week, Mike. I think first of all we should start with the Arsenal game against Manchester City. So Manchester City got a penalty, which was converted. Was it? Or was it converted? It was converted, wasn't it? And then Arsenal went for a penalty. Talk us through it. Obviously, we've got a picture of it. Talk us through it.
Yeah. Right, so this happened, I think, within the first 15 minutes of the game for the penalty shout for us. At that particular point, I think we'd sustained around about 7 or 8 minutes of pressure onto Manchester City. The threat was coming. We could definitely see that we were up for this particular game. It was a lovely through ball. I can't remember who played the ball through, but Martin Ødegaard running through to try and retrieve the ball, scooped it in, or tried to scoop round the ball with his left foot, and Edison are coming in, and in fact, I'm not even going to say what would seem like, because you can see from some of the videos and the different angles that somehow people have managed to get hold of, that actually Edison didn't touch the ball at all as well. He took through Martin Ødegaard and committed a foul. It went to VAR, was checked for about 2 minutes. Apparently they'd had a look at 10, or they checked it about 10 times, and ultimately come to the decision that it was inconclusive, and therefore the decision not to award the penalty was given. And we ultimately paid for that. But that would have taken us into a nice little 1-0 win. Later on in the game, I think it was not Bruno Fernandes. What was his name? I can't remember his fucking name. It was the Manchester City guy, Bruno something.
Bruno. You got Silva.
Silva. That's his name, Bernardo Silva.
That's it.
So he went into the penalty box. Granit Xhaka special, but I think it was a bit unfortunate because whilst there was some slight contact, in fact, I don't even think it made contact with his leg. Bernardo Silva was on his way down, and Granit Xhaka's obviously then grabbed hold of his shirt, but obviously he's then felt the contact, exaggerated the going down, and the penalty was given. I think from most Arsenal fans, you would feel cheated by this outcome, but I suppose in one sense you could look at that decision and say he's pulled his shirt in the box, regardless of whether he's going down or not. That is committing a foul. So I can't be too annoyed with that one, but I suppose from one aspect of it, because he's already going down, you do feel kind of cheated, because if it wasn't for the shirt pull, he would be going down, and there's no contact made. But the ref was actually encouraged to go and have a look at this one on the pitch side monitor, and can't work out as to why that was given, and there was no kind of encouragement for the ref to go and have a look at the decision, and therefore they obviously converted, grabbed a very late winner. We were down to 10 men, so played the majority of the second half with 10 men. I think we gave a good account for ourselves, but once again, it shows the inconsistencies of VAR, and it can suck my balls.
Well, I think from the picture that we've got on the screen of obviously Edison taking out Ødegaard, the ball is nowhere to be seen in Edison's challenge, and the thing that does it for me is the look on Nathan Ake's face, Bernardo Silva's face, and Ruben Diaz's face. They're all like, because they know that's a penalty. Obviously, it wasn't given, but this is now the second time in almost as many weeks that we've seen Edison take out a player and get away with it. Now, I'm not saying there's big club favouritism or potentially even worse than that, but thanks, that seems a bit fishy to me.
But there's big club favouritism.
Yeah, yeah. So, but again, it's a decision that has affected the result of the game. If obviously you hadn't have, or you had have got the penalty, you may have missed it. There is that, but not 9 times out of 10 the penalty goes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it because they're clearly not interested in it anymore.
And I think one of the most infuriating things that you can see ex-players and pundits confirming that it should be this. It should have been given for XYZ reason.
Yes,
not just specifically this decision. There have been multiple decisions that VAR has got incorrectly, or the match officials have got incorrect. And when you're taking into account these people are ex-professionals or current professionals, depending on who's the pundit at the time, that there needs to be something taken into account for that. When you've got referees basically licking each other's asses or not, or too scared to override a senior match official, then there's something wrong.
yes,
There's definitely something wrong. And until the officials receive further training, or we just completely scrap the current officials and get new officials coming in, it's going to be someone else's. The problems are still going to continue. I think one of the things that needs to be kind of addressed is the whole consistency thing.
yes.
Is that, again, you can, I've said it before, you've said it before, everyone's kind of said it before. It all comes down to an interpretation of the current footage that's in front of you. 4 out of 5 people could look at something and say, no, that's wrong. And then you've got one person that says, no, well, that's right because of this reason. It's all subjective.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not subjective. Obviously, when you look at that decision specifically, there's nothing subjective about it. It's incorrect. It's an incorrect decision. You can see that Edison has fouled Martin Ødegaard.
Yes.
There's nothing subjective about it at all. And again, when you're looking at pundits, ex-professionals that are saying that's wrong, that should have been given, and then you get some twat that goes, oh no, it's not been given because of this reason, blah, blah, blah. Then they need to receive further education or take training from somewhere else because it's wrong.
Here's the thing, right? Is I had a look on the Premier League website because I thought maybe they've released a statement because there has been a lot of uproar and a lot of controversy in recent weeks. They haven't released a statement or changed anything about VAR since June of 2020. Might be July of 2020. And one of the things there is it says obviously it's not 100% accurate, which is silly because it's a video referee, so it should be 100% accurate. But also, it does state quite clearly on there as one of their 5 or 6 points that the decision will be given to the on-field official to make. Now, that means, and there's certain criteria for that: red card offences, fouls in the penalty box, things like that, handballs. If the referee should be going over to that little screen every time, not sometimes, not when you think, oh, it could be. Every time, it should be. You need to look at this one. We'll put it on the screen for you. Simple as, and let him make the decision himself, because then you haven't got to overrule an on-field official, because he can overrule himself. As you see, some of them have done. But why are they only encouraging sometimes to go over to the screen? I know there's a thing about taking too long. It shouldn't take too long. You run over, you look at that from one angle, and you go, he's not got nothing at the ball. He's only sent a player penalty. It's a 30 seconds. Well, It's not. It's as long as it takes you to run over to the screen decision. You know what I mean? But moving on to controversial decision number 2. Now, cast your mind back only a few weeks, Mike, and we had a podcast that was entitled "Mane from the Top Rope." Again, we see him with one of his flying elbows. So we've put that on the screen on Aspilicueta in the 37th second or something. He goes in with a flying elbow. When you look at the video of it, he looks at Aspilicueta, elbows him, and then jumps. So quite clearly, he knows the player's there, and he's intentionally elbowed him in the head. He got a yellow for it. But having been known to be a player who likes to elbow other people in the head, surely that's endangering a player, and therefore is a straight red.
Completely agree. This is a player that we've seen also often commit fouls against us in recent times. Obviously, the elbow on Kieran Tierney, not last season, possibly the season before, might have even been the start of last season. And I can't remember who was the other come flying in for. It was either it might have actually been the last game that we played against Liverpool, where we received an absolute drubbing from him. But again, I kind of sit on the fence with this one a little bit, because I think one of the things you need to take into account is the intent of the player. Now, obviously, for this particular one, obviously you have mentioned there that he's kind of looked at Aspilicueta, thrown the elbow, and then jumped.
Yep.
And we saw kind of something similar to that against Kieran Tierney. He kind of looked at him, smashed his arm up into his face, and then kind of went to shield the ball again. But I think one of the difficult things that we've got there is proving the intent. Was it an accident? I think both, or in fact, anyone would know. Anyone that's not a Liverpool player or a Liverpool fan, in this particular instance, will look at that decision and go, "That's disgusting," yada yada. But any Liverpool fan would be like, "Well, no, it's just kind of shielding the ball, or you have to use your arms to jump, or some other bullshit like that." So I think for something like that, because there will be that divide, it obviously will then cast that element of doubt, I think, in my opinion, which is why there's always the argument about endangering the player. I mean, if you come through a sliding tackle, your foot knee height or shin height, then you're asking for trouble. That I think is endangering the player, potentially ruining their career depending on the outcome of the challenge. Whereas something like a flailing elbow or something like that, it's, yes, there is a risk of an injury, but it's possibly something, a bit of a magic sponge or a bit of Vaseline or whatever the case may be. It's not going to ruin their careers for that momentary aggression. So for me, you can see why people are arguing against it. Don't get me wrong, but I think from what I've just said, I think a yellow card may have been sufficient.
Okay.
Just my personal opinion.
Fair enough. I think the way to determine it is if you was to run a poll straight away, and do it. I think majority of people will say it's a foul. I think you're right. Liverpool fans will say not a chance. If it was the other way round, they would be calling for Aspilicueta's head, and that's what I think is silly about it. He's unfortunately we're able to have quite some civil conversations about football. We don't always agree, which is a good thing. That's what football's about. There's a difference of opinions. A lot of football fans you can't have a decent conversation with because they're so single track minded. I'm right. I'm not listening to anyone else, and you can't have a subjective sort of conversation about football, which I think is a real shame. But maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe there needs to be a panel of 3 in the VAR room. If they're not going to refer it over to the referees, panel of 3, majority wins. There's always going to be a majority, isn't there?
Yep.
And then go straight with that decision. That is what it is. The referee's either right or he's wrong.